Amid the ongoing conflict, Ukraine's cultural resilience shines through. Despite the hardships, Ukrainians continue to preserve their heritage, from crafts to the arts. This video highlights how communities keep their traditions alive, showcasing the nation's unbreakable spirit.
Okay, so get ready, because we're going deep today. Like really deep. We're diving into Ukrainian cultural resilience. How they're holding on to their identity in the face of conflict.
Powerful stuff, right?
Yeah, you sent over some incredibly insightful articles, videos.
Yes.
I'm honestly already inspired just looking this over.
Definitely powerful.
It's almost like art becomes this act of defiance. Tradition becomes a lifeline. You know what I mean?
That's what really drew me to this whole topic to begin with.
Yeah.
It would be so easy to get caught up in the tragedy, of course.
Of course.
But there's this vibrancy that persists, even kind of flourishes amidst all the turmoil. Like, did you see that video, Cultural Resilience in Ukraine?
Yes, so vivid, right? Like paints such a picture.
Exactly.
And it really highlights how deeply rooted culture is in their identity. Like those hoot soul dances, that embroidery. It's not just art,
No, it's a statement.
Yeah, it's a statement.
And the way they talk about these traditions, too, it's not just, I miss the good old days. It's this deep connection to their roots.
Right. Like one person said, and this really struck me, our culture is our identity. It's what keeps us connected to our roots, especially in times of uncertainty.
It really makes you think, right? Like, if everything familiar was suddenly gone, what would you cling to? What parts of your own culture would you hold on to the tightest?
It's a powerful question we should all ask ourselves, honestly, especially these days.
For sure.
But even going back to that video, another person talked about art and music as a way to heal, to kind of bring communities back together. They said, through art and music, we express our hopes and dreams. It's a way to heal and unite our communities. And we're seeing that in real time, like theaters in Kyiv.
Oh, yeah.
They're becoming these spaces for people to process, to find comfort, to heal together.
That shared experience, finding strength in community, that seems to be like a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's not just about preserving the past. It's about using it to shape the present, even the future. Like that artist highlighted in the video, the one using traditional motifs and working them into contemporary art.
Yeah, it's like that bridge, right, between generations.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, we're still here, we're still creating.
Still evolving.
Yes. And that spirit of defiance, it's everywhere, not just in art, but in what people are actually doing. Like, take Anastasia Daeva. Before the conflict, she was all about women's empowerment, a leader in that field.
Yeah.
And when the war started,
Yeah.
she poured that same energy into creating a humanitarian foundation. I mean, millions in aid.
And that determination of hers, right? I love that quote, her personal mantra. My home is where my baby has a safe place to grow into who he is. My work is to be his role model. Being Ukrainian is a superpower. And repeat.
Like, wow, right?
Yeah.
It speaks to a resilience that owes so much deeper than just survival. It's about leading by example, creating a future where Ukrainian identity can actually thrive. And it's not just her,
Yeah.
There's also Kostyantin Doroshenko.
Yeah, I read about him.
An art critic who's been just ferociously advocating for Ukrainian art to be recognized as its own thing, separate from Russian influence.
I found that really interesting. It's like this need to declare their own separate cultural identity, especially during conflict. It's almost like art and culture become these battlegrounds too.
It is, isn't it? It's so much bigger than just what looks good, what sounds good. It's about claiming ownership of their narrative, of their story. Doroshenko's whole point about Ukrainian art having its own unique spirit is about pushing back against anyone trying to erase that.
It really makes you wonder, what are the long-term effects of this cultural resistance going to be? How is this going to shape their identity going forward?
It's the question historians, cultural critics, everyone will be asking for years to come. But if you look at what's happening now, you see just a remarkable amount of resilience. And it's not just about clinging to the past, it's about using it. Using culture to heal, to bring people together, to build a future where their identity stays vibrant, stays strong.
And this isn't just like some feel-good story. Like the UN coordinator, Matthias Schmael, even said Ukrainians are rebuilding as fast as they can.
Yeah.
There's this proactiveness to it.
They're not waiting, are they?
Not at all. Like reclaiming their lives, their communities.
Right.
Just rebuilding it all.
Yeah, and this is where the whole discussion about cultural resilience gets really fascinating. It's not just an idea.
Right.
It's in what they're doing. Coming together, rebuilding, creating, even while all this is going on around them.
And like those workshops, those gatherings mentioned in cultural resilience in Ukraine, that's not just preserving traditions, right?
Yeah.
It's about creating some sense of normalcy.
Connection.
Exactly. Healing.
Absolutely. Those spaces become even more important during times like these, When so much feels lost, it's a reminder of what remains.
It's like culture isn't just something nice to have.
It's a need.
It's a need. It's crucial to who we are, how we cope.
It's a wellspring of strength we can draw on,
Hmm.
alone or together. And in Ukraine, it's like that wellspring is overflowing. It's nourishing their spirit, even in the face of, well, the unimaginable, really.
And that actually leads perfectly into this other aspect I wanted to talk about. How art and music are playing this role in healing and uniting people.
Yeah, it's something that video highlighted so well, those theaters in Kyiv. It's more than just entertainment now, it's a refuge.
It's like art and music become this language beyond words, a way to connect on a deeper level, to find unity, even purpose, in the middle of all the chaos.
Finding meaning, solace, hope.
Yeah, and that brings us to Han Haiduk.
Oh,
From the article, Cultural Resilience in Ukraine has become an inspiring narrative during the ongoing conflict with Russia. Preserving traditional crafts, embroidery, it's like a form of resistance, right?
and it goes back to what we were talking about before. It links that past and present, passing those skills down. It ensures that these traditions not only survive, but keep evolving.
It's like a thread connecting them all.
Yeah.
Providing that sense of grounding when everything feels so fragmented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows how powerful individual action can be. That even in the middle of all this, each person can contribute to saving their culture.
And it's incredibly inspiring. It makes me think about all those everyday Ukrainians just trying to live their lives, their experiences, their stories. That's another whole layer to understanding all of this.
And those stories are often the most powerful, the most revealing. They give a human face to it all.
And that's where we'll pick up next time, right? With their stories.
Yes, the personal stories of displacement, the resilience they found in the face of incredible loss.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. It's these personal stories that really hit home for me.
Yeah.
They put a human face on this whole conflict. You shared that article, Ukrainian refugees tell their stories, from City Journal.
Oh, yeah. Really gives you a glimpse into their lives, doesn't it? People forced to flee.
It's heartbreaking, but also incredibly inspiring to see their strength.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, take Victoria, for example.
Mhm.
She stayed in Mykolaiv for weeks, even with the shelling going on.
Because it was home, right?
It shows how deep that connection is.
To their homes, their communities.
Leaving isn't just about physical displacement. It's this whole emotional upheaval.
And even though she eventually left to be with her daughter, it's like her mind is still there.
Yeah.
The article mentioned that news video, the one with the corpses on the street near her apartment.
Oh, right.
That image is just stuck with her. Shows you the trauma lingers, even when you're safe.
A reminder that the scars run deep. Healing, whether it's individual or collective, it takes time.
It's a long road.
But even with all that, there's this determination to rebuild their lives, to find some normalcy again.
And you see that same determination in Oksana's story, too. Successful engineer in Pavlorad, one day, then suddenly fleeing with her kids. Those overcrowded train stations, the fear of being bombed.
It's hard to even fathom.
The article said she only broke down when she got to Poland.
Once she was safe.
Like the reality of it all finally hit her.
These women are carrying so much. It's not just their own trauma. They have their children to think about, trying to create some kind of stability in all that chaos.
The emotional weight of it all, the uncertainty. It's remarkable how they keep going, adapting, building a new life for their families.
It really speaks volumes about the human spirit, that ability to adapt, to find that inner strength.
And, it ties back into what we were talking about before about cultural resilience.
Oh, so
Even in their displacement, they're carrying their culture with them, their traditions, language, values. It doesn't just disappear.
it becomes this anchor,
Exactly.
a source of strength, identity when everything else has been turned upside down.
And it's not just women. You see it in Valerie's story as well.
Oh, yes. Fleeing Bucha with his wife, who's partially paralyzed and epileptic. Talk about facing incredible danger.
Every step of the way.
He even had that close call with the soldier who shot at him. The courage it must have taken to get through that.
And even after all that, he's still so calm, focused on caring for his wife, rebuilding.
It's incredible.
It really is.
A testament to human resilience, finding meaning, purpose, even when surrounded by darkness. And this is where I think the individual stories connect to the bigger picture of Ukrainian cultural resilience.
In what way?
These stories aren't just about one person surviving.
Right.
It's about preserving a whole way of life, a culture, their shared identity. Victoria, Oksana, Valerie, they're all carrying a piece of Ukraine with them.
In their hearts, their memories.
The stories they tell, the traditions they hold on to.
They're each like a symbol of that resilience.
Of a nation that refuses to be broken.
And by sharing their stories, we're not just acknowledging their suffering.
We're celebrating their strength, their resilience, their unwavering commitment to their heritage.
It's powerful. Even in the face of war and displacement, culture can heal, connect, and give hope.
Yeah.
And that message goes way beyond Ukraine.
Absolutely. It speaks to our shared humanity, our ability to endure, adapt, and find strength in one another.
It reminds you that even in the darkest times, there's always a glimmer of hope. That spark of resilience is waiting to be found.
Often in the most unexpected places.
A song, a dance, a memory. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really profound question to consider. It makes you realize how much we take for granted. Those everyday comforts, the traditions we inherit, the communities that shape us.
It really does. And it underscores just how deeply displacement affects people. Not just the physical loss, but that severing of cultural connections. It's like losing those anchors of identity and belonging.
We've talked about how Ukrainians are preserving their culture, even reinterpreting it. But how does this idea of cultural resilience work on a more personal level? Yeah. For individuals who are displaced, dealing with trauma.
That's where sharing these personal narratives becomes so powerful. You see the mechanisms of cultural resilience at work in those little details.
Can you give an example?
Well, think back to Victoria. That image of those bodies near her apartment, it's seared into her memory. But she's also holding on to those other memories, the good ones, of her life in Mykolaiv, the traditions, the language that connects her to her heritage.
So it's not about erasing the bad, it's about holding on to the good. Those things that give you strength.
Exactly. And those memories, those pieces of culture, become even more precious when everything else is uncertain.
They remind you who you are, where you come from.
What you value.
Like a lifeline.
Yes. And we see it in Oksana's story too, right? She was a successful engineer, and now she's displaced, jobless in a new country. But she's still drawing strength from being Ukrainian. From those traditions she's passing on to her kids, the language that links her to her community.
Even though that community is scattered now.
Right. It highlights how culture is more than just a place. It's people, shared values, connections that go beyond borders.
And those connections are so vital when it comes to rebuilding, to healing, to finding hope.
Absolutely.
It shows you that cultural resilience isn't just some abstract idea. It's real. It's lived experience. It's a process that's happening in the lives of individuals, families, communities.
And it's something we can all learn from, because even if we're not going through what Ukrainians are facing, we all face challenges, loss. We all need those sources of strength, those ways to cope.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Ukrainian cultural resilience, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to think about?
I think it goes back to that question we asked before. If you had to leave everything behind, what would you take with you? Those pieces of your culture. It's a way to reflect on what really matters to you, what gives you strength, those connections to your heritage, your community, yourself.
It reminds us that culture is more than just entertainment, more than just how things look. It's a source of strength, something we can draw on together or alone to face whatever life throws at us.
And it's a call to action, isn't it? To appreciate the incredible richness of cultures around the world, to support those fighting to save their heritage, and to find ways to weave that resilience into our own lives.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive. It's been truly insightful. And for everyone listening, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep seeking out those stories that connect us, inspire us, and remind us just how powerful the human spirit can be.
Ukraine's cultural resilience is a powerful reminder of the strength of tradition and community. Despite the challenges, the Ukrainian people continue to preserve their heritage, ensuring their identity remains unshaken. Thank you for watching, and let's continue to support and celebrate the resilience of cultures around the world.